Hello, Galaxy. I'm Chris Pirillo, and this is my third attempt at doing a live reaction video to The Rise of Skywalker. Um, Despite my uh, frazzledness, if I could use that word, I will tell you up front, I will get into spoilers, not immediately. Um, I loved the movie. Second, this week has been one hell of a year. It capped off with massive technical difficulties. I blame myself in conjunction with YouTube shortcomings that I've been dealing with for quite some time. So if it seems that I am tired and frazzled, that's why. This week started, of course, as many of you very well know, with uh, the death of one of our dogs, Wicket, and I did a video on that already. I'm not going to get into that. That really kind of set the stage for how this week was going to be, seemingly. And then Merry Impeachment Miss. I think it's okay to say that now. Sometimes it's not safe to say that. Usually people want to say Happy Impeachment Days, but now I think it's safe to say Merry Impeachment Miss. So that happened. And then, of course, The Rise of Skywalker. Uh, my reaction to this movie is I would say somewhat similar to um, a typical reaction that I might have after a movie. I'm reminded of how I reacted to Solo, having really appreciated Solo as a film, as a movie, as a story with characters and everything, as well as being a Star Wars movie. But for a Star Wars movie, I think The Rise of Skywalker nailed it for me, and I really want to kind of dive into this because I've got to set the again I gotta set the stage, and I'm not getting into spoilers here. I will warn everybody before I dive into that because I will be talking about spoilers, just not immediately, certainly not live. And since this is live, if y'all have questions, this is where I would warn anybody watching that you shouldn't look at the comments because spoilers may actually come in from the comments. Assuming I'm tapping the right one. God, what a horrible thumbnail. Hey, at least I got the live stream working, okay? So, I know everyone's inclined to ask, hey, what's your ranking, for the Star Wars movies now? Where would you rate it? How does it stack up against the other Star Wars movies? And I find it challenging to do that, and I always have, um, largely because I guess I don't think of Star Wars that way. I'm never really not in the mood to watch Star Wars or to have it on, and there's just so much to enjoy, and there's always something that I can enjoy from any one of the films that I find it difficult to rank them. I find it even challenging to grade them because each one of them is different, and the way that I look at it is that I'm just excited to be able to watch Star Wars. And so that's how I go into a lot of these things. I am not a film critic. I'm 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 not even going to say I'm a Star Wars critic. I've been critical certainly about certain things in this franchise. Not much, but I'm not saying it's disingenuous because I think it's fine if you want to rank and you want to grade. And you definitely want to say what you like and what you didn't like. That's fine. I have no problem with other people wanting to do that. It's just inevitably when people ask me to do it, I just like I don't know. It's just like with reviews, right? Like I'll talk about something, but based upon my experience, not necessarily putting a grade on it. And so when initial reviews came in, I was avoiding the internet largely over the past week or so. Barely looking at it, but then after Monday, admittedly, I'm not saying that Wicket's passing made it easier, but I disconnected. It was very difficult to get to Thursday in that sense. Uh, but um it it made it easier to not look at social, because again, I was like just I was wanting to disconnect, not really wanting to engage, and not really want to talk about anything. So it just so happened that this was the week. This it's been one hell of a year. This week has been one hell of a year. That's the easiest way to say it. So I I've seen a lot of people got spoiled on accident. Some people got spoiled on purpose. I'm the kind of person that just doesn't want to see anything past maybe the final trailer, the teasers. I'm hyped up enough. I'm good. I'm satisfied that it's Star Wars. And is it perfect? No, but nothing is. And I don't know. I think everybody has that different level of what perfect is, what they wanted, what they would have liked to see, what they would have been surprised by. But I just knew that inevitably, if I got too excited, I'd get overexcited and think about things too much, and then get ahead of myself and basically set the stage for disappointment. So I'm inclined not to participate with a lot of the hype. I'm not into that kind of hype. I really am not. I'm not a hype guy at all. Like, give me something tangible. Give me something I can sink my teeth into. Now, if I am anything, I'm a toy guy, so I'm thrilled. When the new toys come out and the collectibles. If I gave a reaction to this movie, I might as well give a reaction to the theaters. The collectibles, the exclusives, are so incredibly lackluster and uninspired. Like, I was saying this, earlier, in relation to Disney's marketing, which may not be as connected as the theater franchise, the theater marketing, like Regal and AMC and Cinemark. Cinemark had the best exclusives with the lightsaber cups, which I definitely sought out. Like, as soon as I knew they were released, I got those a couple of weeks ago. Those are the best things. The theater I went to, a Regal theater, had squat, had nothing. Like, you could pay, I don't know how much extra to get a pin and like a badge, but that was, and maybe watch the film like an hour earlier. But I'm like, I couldn't justify the extra price. I couldn't justify the cost. So I went with the regular old showing at 6 p.m. In fact, 20 minutes in or so, the power went out in our theater. So like the whole theater, like, what, and it was off for like 3 minutes. No, maybe about 5 minutes before someone came in and said, yeah, we lost power. We're rebooting the server and we'll have it back up and running, in another 5 minutes. And then we'll jump to the part of the movie that, we left off. So about 5 minutes come and go, and the movie kind of starts up. Like, you see the Lucasfilm logo, and then the screen blacks out. You can tell they're probably skipping it. And they skip to a part that we hadn't seen yet. And everyone starts just, boom, no, you went too far. And it didn't seem like they were responding at all. And ultimately, I thought, well, are we going to miss a part of the film? Like, just have to move from here? I'm like, I was covering my eyes as long as I could. I'm like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it. I'm like, no. And finally, I kind of gave up at about 10 seconds in. I'm like, well, I guess this is where we're going to be. It wasn't really with context, but they stopped the projector again, and they rewound even further, taking us back to an earlier point, substantially earlier. And then, the audience was like, yes, thank you. So my reaction to the film, by and large, was very positive, like incredibly positive. It was exciting. It was fun. It was funny. I mean, the humor I thought was just on point. I enjoyed just every bit of it, honestly, from beginning to end. I was just curious to know where it was going to go. Could some things have been staged a little differently? Yes. Was there a bit of exposition in certain spots that I could have done without, or could have been done in a bit more tasteful manner? Possibly. But it did not take away from my overall enjoyment of the film. If I gave any kind of a negative reaction, it would specifically be for the theater, right? Like, it just was not a good experience with the theater. I'm ready. I'm wanting to throw money their direction. My family and I, Diana, Jedi, and I, we're going to see it again, or I'm going to see it again. They're going to see it for the first time, and I think we may actually see it twice over the next week or so. It's possible because I had tickets pre-booked, but they didn't have the swag that I might want to get with the popcorn buckets at another theater. I'm like, well, do you guys want to possibly see it twice? So I'm hoping they will like it, and I have a feeling they will. There's certain parts I will tell you, and without getting into spoilers right now, although I'm getting really close to getting into spoiler territory, so feel free to tune out. Um, there are definitely some parts that would be fear inducing, like scary. Like I mean, like not horror, but about as close to horror as I've seen in a Star Wars film. Like not gore, but just like really kind of spooky, creepy. Like whoa, dude. That was even as an adult, like I gotta tell you that I think added to the just the nefarious nature of, and I think as we know the from what we've seen from the teasers and the trailers, like of kind of what might be happening, especially with the introduction of characters or reintroduction of other characters. I'm going to give you 10 seconds to tune out, and then I'm jumping into spoilers. Uh, so good luck with that. Let me see. I know it's late on a Friday night, but this is the bandwidth I currently have in this room. Apologies though. I've got to get my light replaced because you're probably seeing noise, and I'm running this on a smartphone screen here with a wide angle camera lens. Um, Everything looks okay, minus my skin gets blown out, and that just drives me nuts. So Luke and Anakin fighting the Emperor as Duel of the Fates plays in the background as Rey and Ben team up fighting the Knights of Ren, if only. Hey, I don't. Maybe you wished that happened. And now that we're into spoiler territory, it did not. So the crawl happens, right? Lucasfilm, yeah, and then the Star Wars, yeah, the crawl immediately. I'm just captivated. I'm like, the first paragraph, I'm like, whoa, like then the second paragraph, whoa, and then the third paragraph, I'm like, whoa, and I turned to my friend Eric, right? He came with me, and you might remember Eric Eichmeyer. So I turned to him, I'm like, God, holy cat, dude, and immediately we're like thrust into the action, like not even a chance to like breathe, right? Kylo's like striking down these creatures or whatever on the planet. You're looking for something, we don't know what's going on, and I'm fine with that. I was all right with that. I was okay with that. And immediately jumping into like Finn and Poe and Cloud and BB-8, like doing the hyperspace jumps or whatever that is. I'm just like, oh, this is crazy. I was just blown away. So it immediately, it just grabbed me. Immediately grabbed me, and I was along for the ride just about the entire time. It did not miss a single beat for me. I never had the moment of kind of wanting to look at a watch that I don't wear. The only Star Wars movie I ever did that was Rogue One. Rogue One was a slow burn, in for a lot of different reasons. I like Rogue One, don't get me wrong, but that was the only Star Wars movie that I've ever seen that kind of had me wondering, okay, where is this going? Um, as opposed to the Rise of Skywalker, which is bam, 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 bam. Like you don't even have a chance to breathe, right? You're just taking in all the action and just listening and watching and like making connections and like figuring out what's going on. And I loved it. I just loved it. Maybe it's just my nature. And I like the Force Awakens. I did at first viewing and second viewing. The Last Jedi I really enjoyed for its surprises. Like wow, okay, that's how I was really genuinely like surprised. Last Jedi to me isn't as rewatchable as the Force Awakens has been, and I feel that the Rise of Skywalker with the three films of the sequel trilogy or the final part of the saga, I feel is the most rewatchable. It's me personally, and I think the best of the three. I don't. I mean, I just based upon my initial reaction, like it just it was what I wasn't necessarily expecting outright, but everything just kind of fits into place. And this is the thing. Like I know a lot of people do these like mental gymnastics, but if you just if you listen and you accommodate like what's happening, it's less of I guess it's less of a negative impact on my enjoyment of any particular Star Wars experience. And I can say that now. We've got The Mandalorian, which of course is just like bam, it's also like episode 7 of The Mandalorian, season 1. Oh man, it's perfect. Okay, I'm not gonna go into The Mandalorian right now, although I'm sitting in front of Mandalorian. Um but to me, right, the first, little bit goes by, and we get to the part where they're on Pisana, and of course Kylo. I'm sorry, I know I'm jumping around. I'm not exactly going chronological, but when Kylo's first there, talking to his officers, he's obviously a force to be reckoned with. I loved that the Knights of Ren come walking in and get dirt all over the First Order's clean floors. I loved just that visual, to kind of show you where they, where their characters, where they were, like in terms of their demeanor versus the way the First Order's run, and Kylo's kind of in between. So, with the first thing that jumped out at me as okay, I knew I was going to enjoy it, but the scene where they're on Pisana and they first get there and they're looking over and they see this kind of party, the festival or whatever, and C3PO, of course, oh, this is the festival of whatever, and it's this, that, and the other thing, and he said, and then I think Poe said something sarcastic like, "Oh, lucky us," and C3PO says, "Yes, lucky indeed," or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. But everyone just kind of one by one, they just kind of like look at 3PO, and then 3PO just he pauses and he looks behind him. I was that it was an amazing moment. It was an amazing moment. And I tell you, it just for C3PO, it just got better from there. As this was C3PO stole the show. I know they're gonna market Dio, and which was cute, and I think it was J.J. Abrams who actually voiced Dio, and it was I like Dio. Okay, he's not much of a. He's there. He's supportive. It's a new droid. It's certainly I don't think going to have the same presence as BB-8, and I don't think that was the reason for Dio to exist. But it's nice to have another droid in the family. Never underestimate a droid, right? Perfect quote. So, C3PO, he stole the show. Oh, it's just, and I'm not like a C3PO fanboy, right? Like, oh, yeah, C3PO. He's always been there, and I've always appreciated him there, and it's a familiar face, but it's always been kind of like this, especially like in the prequels, and then and then the sequels to this point, he was there, but he was just there. This is C3PO's film. I mean, it was so good. I'm like, oh man, they are using him. They are absolutely using him just everything he would say and his demeanor. Like it really, I think it was exactly the way he could have and should have been used in this film. Like all the way to when they sank through the sand fields or the sinking fields, and he's like, "Is this the afterlife? I don't think I should be here," or something like that. It's just crazy. He was like, or so Poe was yelling out for a couple people, and C3PO says, "Well, you didn't ask for me, but I'm here." I mean, it's just everything, everything that C3PO said and did was perfect. And his disappearing scene, right when he was translated, he needed to translate to Sith. Like, I got to tell you, that didn't hit me emotionally. I'm like, oh man, that's bad. It didn't hit me emotionally, and in watching the trailer, it did, right? And maybe because I didn't know what the stakes were going to be completely, but it was certainly like, wow, no, he doesn't have a backup, really. That did kind of shock me, but then again, in a galaxy far, far away, we live here and we don't do backups of our data. So it didn't surprise me. But it didn't hit me as much as it might have hit others. but I enjoyed it. Oh God, I enjoy it. I just enjoyed the hell out of it. And every twist, every turn, every moment, it just kept going. It kept going, and there was so much to unpack. And it's just, I didn't mind not being able to catch my breath. I loved that. I thought that the scenes with Leia were done as well as they could be. Of course, right now with technology, we're kind of in this state where you have to suspend disbelief a little. Like Carrie Fisher is no longer there, and the lighting of the scenes looks a little weird. It looks just a little off. And that was, it didn't take me out of the moment, right? I believe that was Leia, and I believe that the dialogue was genuine and it fit. I thought that was very well done, or as well as could be expected. You know, um, I found myself getting lost in it, and I could have easily sat there for another hour. I could have. I I I loved, and I know a lot. This is where a lot of people. I think this is where you have this division. Some people just did not like the film. Period. I loved it. There's no wrong answer to this. You can't slag another fan for liking something or not liking something, but you can slag a fan if they're slagging you for liking something or not liking something that they like or don't like. That's where you draw the line. Like, that's an insecurity that one might project onto somebody else. So, I don't care about ratings and rankings and reviews. I'm like, I loved it, and nothing is going to change that. Um, I feel we had a pretty good audience. They weren't one way or another. I think we were all along for the ride. I guess that's something that I'm not sure we're going to see in future viewings. Because sometimes you get people that ruin it for everybody else. They laugh at the inappropriate times, and maybe not realizing it, and maybe that's just something that there's a certain feeling that they have that you may not see. And sometimes when people laugh at something that you don't see as funny, you're like, why is that funny? Sometimes I have to look at them like, why are they laughing at it? Like, it's supposed to be sad, but why is this funny? A lot of people had that reaction, like with Leia in The Last Jedi, right? When she basically reaches out with the Force and pulls herself in. I mean, when that happened, I was like, whoa. I'm like, she can use the Force. I'm like, that was, I thought, stellar, right? And then of course that's the moment everyone slagged. Like, I'm like, I thought it was great. Like, didn't bother me a bit. I mean, like, of all times to show that she could use the Force, then of course we saw that expanded upon in this film, right? Like, seeing them go back and she was actually training with Luke. I'm like, oh man, that is so cool. And she had a lightsaber, and like, oh, so good, so good. I just love that backstory. That's not, to me, that's not retconning. It's just it's expanding the story a little bit more. No more than it was retconning in Return of the Jedi when Obi-Wan basically had to say, yeah, well, it depends. It's a certain point of view. So I was very pleased with every moment that I think everyone else found controversial. There's been some issue with the fan service that is done in this film, and I loved it. Wait, so like people get mad because it's not Star Wars enough, and then people get mad because it's too Star Warsy. Like, make up your minds. Like, so I was happy. I'm like John Williams. I'm like, dude, John Williams. Like, and in the voices of the Jedi. And then I'm like, dude, I heard Ahsoka. I'm like, oh, I actually was like that. That was one moment like, oh my god, Ahsoka. Because you remember, at the last time we really saw Ahsoka, she was no Jedi, right? She was kind of in between, like Gray. She was no Jedi, and those were her words. So at some point, it is possible before her death that she turned back to becoming a Jedi. We don't know what happened, right? We last saw her, of course, going off with Sabine to find Ezra. So, but I heard Ahsoka very clearly, and I was like, dude, I'm like, I needed cues. I'm like, I know why they couldn't do visuals of the characters, but I'm like, who was that? That was a Jedi. Okay, that sounded like Mace Windu. Okay, who's that? That sounded like, that was definitely Obi-Wan. Or that was definitely Yoda. So I would have appreciated different kind of visual cues there at the end. But apart from that, I was just like, wow, in the ways that it just kind of expanded upon. And this is what I've loved about the sequel trilogy, is we learn something, you know, new about the Force and how it works or how it doesn't work, all the way to, you know, Finn, you know, not being a Force wielder, necessarily Force sensitive, but him thinking that, you know, he just had a feeling. And I'm like, you know, I was okay with that. I'm like, cool. He's not a Jedi. I don't think he's going to train to be a Jedi, but like he had a feeling. And I think that that did enough for me where I think it fell short for a lot of people who were, I think, PO'd, like angry that they effectively made Rey a Palpatine. Now, I've never made theory, made theories. I wasn't sure. I left it wide open. But you know, to hear that she was a Palpatine, I'm like, Rey Palpatine, it just doesn't roll off the tongue. I'm like, for some reason, that was my hang up, was that it just didn't sound right, you know, because for years it was always Palpatine, right? You know, when I think Skywalker, am I talking Anakin? Am I talking Luke? You know, we knew them as Luke and Anakin, but like Palpatine was always the Emperor or Sheev, right? So it just didn't sound right to me, but it wasn't like, oh, this is such a detraction. It took away, some fans have said, and I have every reason to understand and appreciate the perspective, that it took away Rey's agency, right? That, you know, she was a part of this lineage, this bloodline of Palpatine. But, you know, part of you know, the Force, and the best way to kind of understand this, I can't explain it half as well, but if you look at a podcast that was done, there's a little video cast that was done with Freddie Prinze Jr., who of course voiced Kanan Jarrus in Rebels, which if you've not seen, do it, because it's an amazing series. And he was talking about how Lucas sees the Force and talks about balance. And this has always been about balance. And then you start to wonder, is it between Kylo and Rey? Is that the balance? Is it between Kylo and his parents? Is that the balance? Is it, you know, what is this? And so to hear Palpatine, this major evil, like nefarious force in the background that's basically been pulling strings, you know, basically creating Snoke out of thin air. There's Snoke's backstory. Okay. Like, I'm like, I just accept it. I don't like question, like, oh, no, I'm like, that's what it is. Okay, Rey's Palpatine. I'm like, oh my God. Okay, well, I guess that makes sense. So you have all these people that, you know, now if there are these people out there, if they called Rey and Mary Sue, they should be eating crow. Because, you know, I always looked at it like you can't judge one film in a trilogy without seeing all three of them. And as much as The Last Jedi, you know, you didn't set up the story, didn't finish the story, is right in between, didn't necessarily help bridge that gap as well as it might have, it still was, I think, very influential in helping us understand a little more about the Force, and certainly setting up the relationship between Rey and Kylo to the point where Reylo happened. And of course, there was vindication. And I was okay with that. I was like, oh, Reylo is happy. Yeah, I mean, it was just, I thought, you know, every bit of it was, it made sense, or I didn't question it, and I'm not going to overanalyze it. But you know, you know, there were no parts that really jumped out that really bothered me, but parts that I'm just more curious about, like parts that I want to explore more. Like, you know, how did Palpatine, you know, aggregate the Sith? How did Rey reach out to all those Jedi? Like, what, you know, was Rey was obviously not, you know, a virgin birth like Anakin, but like, if Palpatine's this evil force, this is where I'm talking about like Rey not being a Mary Sue, because she's got the lineage. So it explains that, if Palpatine's powerful with the dark side, the Force is going to strike a balance. And so the balance that was struck was Rey. And so it's, people would say, well, if Palpatine knew that she was Force sensitive, why wouldn't he destroy her? Or I'm sorry, why was he trying to destroy her instead of trying to convert her to the dark side? Because she's so powerful in the light. This is the way the Force works. This is where you really have to listen to Freddie Prinze Jr., because as far as I'm concerned, what he said is canon. But he basically you know, talked about like there just being, if it's this dark and this strong, there's going to be a light as well. And so you know, Palpatine obviously something was going on, and so however that happened, at some point he apparently had a child, a son. You know, and he's, the son is obviously an inconsequential part of the story apart from Rey's backstory. I think that, you know, and I know some people think differently. but the fact that she is a Palpatine explains a lot about Palpatine's force powers and as strong as he became in the dark side, and how Rey became just as strong without recognizing why or how. It explains away a lot of the Mary Sue that she was accused of, especially in The Force Awakens. So to me, that mitigates that concern. Not that I'm like, well, there's an explanation, we just don't have it. Right? Luke, for all intents and purposes, could have been seen as a Gary Stew in A New Hope. And I know a lot of neckbeards will, oh no, but actually it's this and that, and like, okay, whatever, dude. Like, I'm fine with the choices that they made. I'm okay with it. I wasn't, as held up as a lot of people were, and I know a lot of diehard fans were disappointed that Rey was a Palpatine because of the reason that Rey couldn't be a nobody anymore. I mean, she was a nobody from Jakku with nobody parents, but her lineage, the fact that she was tied to Palpatine, twisted a lot of the way that people saw the Force as being for everybody, as set up in specifically in The Last Jedi. And that's not to say that it isn't still for everybody, because that's, Finn's kind of left that window open for, he has a feeling, you may not understand it as the Force, you may not be Force sensitive, but it didn't take away from, I guess, my thinking that it was all about midi-chlorians, or it was all about the Skywalker or Palpatine lineage, or you had to be strong in the Force. Like, I guess to me, maybe I wasn't as married to that as an idea or a theme, that Rey needed to be nobody and come from nobody, a nobody lineage to be powerful, or to be seen as powerful, or to be an interesting character. She was driven, absolutely driven, to squash evil. I mean, she faced Snoke, she faced Palpatine, and she could have only done that if she had this bravery that came about, from potentially her upbringing as an adopted child, right? Or however you would explain her situation, right, on Jakku. So I don't feel like there was retconning going on as much as other people would, or let me put it this way: no more retconning than we might have seen in the original trilogy. I actually loved the part where, when Rey casts away the lightsaber, Luke catches it in nearly the same spot where he tossed it away. And if that irony was lost on you, I mean, like, dude, some people want to pit Rian Johnson, or I guess J.J. Abrams, up against Rian Johnson. They're like, oh, he just totally undid that. I'm like, no, dude. Like, think about it. Luke was wrong. Luke admitted he was wrong. It took Yoda to say, dude, like, failure is a part of this. Failure is a learning tool. And so Luke, as a Force ghost, catches it, and, like, he says in a very wry way, like, what was it? Like, I can't remember the exact line, but it was just perfect. It was just like, you should be more careful of this. It was funny. It was on point. It was on point. And if that irony was lost on you, I don't know what I have no idea where your head is at. And maybe you're thinking about it differently, but the way I took it, I think, was as intended, not as any kind of erasure of what got set with The Last Jedi. There are other people who are concerned with Rose's role in The Last Jedi. And my sentiment on that is, I really liked Rose because she was the heart of the resistance in The Last Jedi. She needed to be there to kind of help keep hope alive. I don't think Leia could have necessarily pulled that off on her own. Moreover, Rose was there primarily to bring Finn to a realization that he needed to help the resistance, and that's what he was meant to do. So Rose helped Finn realize his character. I'm not saying that was Rose's only purpose, but it did not surprise me that Rose had a lesser role in this film at all. She was a tech, and which wasn't a problem. I mean, she was still instrumental. She was still functional. And she was still there, but I don't think it was Rose's story. I'm not sure how much the character could have necessarily added. Hey, who am I? I'm not the writer. I'm not the person who directed, but it gave more time to Finn and Poe and Rey and to a certain degree Chewbacca. And I was great. I was fine with that. I loved it. The chemistry is awesome. It was just perfect. One of the moments that was spoiled for me it was in Social, or one of the teasers, is when Rey basically said, we're okay to be here. And Finn says, she doesn't do that to us, right? I would have laughed. If I heard that for the first time in the theater, I would have doubled over. But I knew it was coming. It's still funny, but when you have that moment spoiled, it just, I don't know. That was something I wish wouldn't have been spoiled in the teaser. Something that I saw that effectively spoiled it. Give me a second. I'm looking at chat here. I'm just looking at the comments, or at least attempting to. Boy, there's quite a few. Do you not get tired of seeing real world politics seeping into movies? It's tiresome, I think. No, but I tell you what, corrupt Senate enabling someone to effectively gain authoritarian rule seems awfully prescient, doesn't it? We're about this close right now, contemporarily, this close for someone saying, I am the Senate. Think about it. Think about it. I am the Senate. Think about it. So, Star Wars and politics have always been like this. Now, if you happen to be on the other side, I don't know what to tell you. It is what it is. I'm just saying, it's been laid out. It's been laid bare. That is a very solid conclusion to be drawn. So no, I absolutely do not get tired of seeing the real world politics, if only because maybe I wish it was fantasy, but I just know it isn't. The politics are just not fantasy, unfortunately. There's a theater chain in Canada with lots of exclusive merchandise, $60 popcorn tin, pop cup in the shape of R2-D2. Yeah, Liz said something about that, John, but I'm like, oh man, I wish I could have that, but obviously I can't because I'm not going to spend that much money and I don't live in Canada. I wish we had those exclusives. If you guys get any exclusives, man, get a hold of any. Maybe I'll pay for shipping. Pardon me. I apologize. I've got my reaction juice here. I need a little more of it. Yeah, the scary parts I'm worried about with Jedi, like frightening. Like I'm just gonna be like, okay, don't look, don't look, don't look, don't look. But I think she'll like the rest of it. But man, oh god, it was so good. Everything was so good. I'm just thinking the visuals and the scary, like, I should be scared, right? I want to be scared because that's a moment you should be scared, right? Anyway, I was thrilled. So I'm looking at comments, seeing if there's anything you guys want me to address. Theater worker said, finally, Star Wars is over. I will not have to deal with fans anymore. That's not true. See, this is okay. First of all, this is the last of the Skywalker saga. Second of all, this is not the last Star Wars film. This may be the last Star Wars trilogy, and certainly a 9-episode saga. They're going to keep making Star Wars movies, but they will be more like a Rogue One or a Solo or the standalone stuff, or maybe some other idea might come along. But I don't think this is the end of Star Wars movies. I just don't. I think that Star Wars will get, if any new movie, I think has to get away from what we've known and who we've known, like almost entirely. Like we've got to start exploring other parts of the galaxy. Who was the girl at the end talking to Lando? Was that his daughter? Possibly could also be Leia's daughter. I don't think it was Leia's. That was Jannah. And I enjoyed her integration. The fact that she expanded Finn's story in the sense that there are other stormtroopers who deserted. I loved that. And I also really, really liked Lando at that moment. I may say, hey, Jannah, basically he didn't say, hey, Jannah, because he's, who are you? And that kind of thing. And she explained what was going on. And he said, I can't remember how he said it, but like, would you like to explore that? Would you like to find out? And I'm just like, oh man, that was so cool. I'm like, yeah. I mean, it sets the stage. Is there going to be a Lando Jannah film? I don't think so. Is there going to be a TV series? I don't think so. A comic arc, possibly. A book, possibly. But it was just nice to see that, okay, Lando, what's next for Lando, right? Is he sticking around the Resistance? It gave him, it gave him a direction, and it was just another interesting story to kind of tell. Like, wow, Lando may take up the mantle of helping reconnect former stormtroopers with their families and where they came from. I thought it was great. I loved that part. I loved that moment. Oh, someone's saying George Lucas equals Jedi, Disney equals Sith. You can just leave, like, if you haven't already, because that's just BS. As far as I'm concerned, that is my humble opinion. I really appreciate everything Disney's done. So Disney, you're making mistakes certainly, but you're also working to correct them. The Mandalorian, I think, is putting us all on the right path. How many female Star Wars fans did Disney create? Not a single one. Michael, careful. I'm probably going to ignore Michael's comments now because he seems to be one of those neck beards. Oh, look at that. His avatar has got a beard on his neck. Boy, you are the epitome. I'm not joking. Yes, look at the comments. Funny. Man. Hang on. Scrolling. Rey displayed more power than Yoda. I guess I haven't like made a scorecard or anything. Let's see here. Scrolling. Hard to get to the or any questions here. Who is the dead body under the quicksand, bro? I need to know. That was I can't remember his name, but he was the one. Like, I need to see it again to fill in the details, because I mean, I know who he was in the role. He was somehow tied to either finding Rey or finding Palpatine. No, he must have been because he had the Sith Finder. That's what it's called, right? The Sith Finder, Sith Seeker. And he was the one. That's where Luke's trail went cold. So he was somehow connected to Rey on Jakku, and I think he's the one who shot Rey's parents, and I can't remember his name, unfortunately. Was the theater packed? Yeah. I mean, I thought it was packed. I went to buy tickets for an upcoming showing this week, and it was difficult to find seats. I know, and so I'm not saying they're all selling out, but I mean, fan ratings. What is it? Current fan ratings on Rotten Tomatoes beat the critics, of course. Like 86%. I am the 86%. But that's just my opinion, right? I'm the worst person to ever ask about Star Wars. I'm biased. It's always going to be that way. Did I freak out when I heard Vader? Oh, at first, yeah, right? When Palpatine, like, I am the voice in your head. Every voice in your head that you ever heard in your head. I was like, whoa, that was great. I would have liked to have seen more of his helmet. No. I thought every part of it was, I thought spectacular. There was nothing that just felt out of place for me. I enjoyed it. It was a romp. It was fun. I laughed. I was interested. I was compelled. I was like, oh, okay. That's what's happening now. I was in. From minute one, right? The dead speak. I'm like, what? Like, what? I mean, I knew it was Palpatine, but I'm just like, dude, that line just grabs you, pulls you right in. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think that's the bottom line. I'm just looking for any kind of new comments that I might respond to or any questions, or see if I have any other thoughts, any things that jump out. Okay, so the finale scene, I loved the fact, even though Chewbacca technically got his medal in the comic arc, a lot of people didn't read that arc. It wasn't the best comic arc. Chewbacca did get a medal of some kind. I really appreciated Maz Kanata giving, and if I'm gonna, two things. One, I appreciated Maz Kanata giving Chewie a medal. I thought I was like, oh, I was like, yes. I'm like, I thought I really liked that moment. Again, it's fan service, and I'm just like, yes. I'm here for it. Give me more fan service. I'm a fan. Give me service. I'm like, yes. Like the Mandalorian episode, what was it, 6 or 5? That some people said, there's too much fan service. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, we're fans. You know, I'm like, okay. I love that moment. And Maz Kanata, correct me if I'm wrong, she seemed practical. She didn't seem CGI. That seemed like an actual puppet. And I gotta watch it a few more times, but it just didn't seem like she was a CGI character. I thought it seemed like she was an actual physical character. At least that was my initial read on it. That's the thing I'm going to say about Maz. Another thing that happened, we had a what's the best way to say this? A kiss at the end of the film between two women. I don't know how to say it. I don't want to, but like that was like I was like, oh, that's cool. That's great. I'm in. Yes, you go. Could it have been done differently? Sure. Was it enough? I don't know. But the fact that it happened, dude. But then again, I would have been okay with Finn and Poe turning out to be gay. Like it wouldn't have bothered me a bit. Like I don't think that's the case. I think they would have had the chemistry for it. And because they had chemistry already. You know, it just wouldn't have bothered me. It does. I mean, it doesn't. It adds depth to these characters in this galaxy. It adds a depth that we didn't see before. I mean, at least within the Star Wars galaxy on film. And it's only been alluded to, right? Indirectly. I think Dr. Afra is also gay. There's rumors that Afra may be getting a series. I don't know how unfounded these rumors are, but Afra could get a series on Disney Plus, which I'd totally be in for. Absolutely. So there's no depth in sinning. Michael, dude, leave. Go. Here, let me help. Let me help you, buddy. Okay. Take care. So anyway, dude, I'm tolerant to a point. Like, and then I'm like, okay, dude, I'm out. Like, you do your thing. I'm good on my end. So yeah, no, I'm trying to think of any other. I mean, there's so many moments, so many things. I'm like, oh yeah, I can't wait to enjoy again. Zori Bliss, I really loved. I mean, not just the. Where is she? Hang on. Here. I have her here. Got my Zori. Loved it. I loved her. I love her, the role that she played. I had a couple of questions, actually. Speaking of Zori, right? She comes back at the end. I'm like, yeah, with Babu Frick, who I love. My God, when 3PO's like, hello, I'm C-3PO, human cyborg relations. You know, and I thought, or whatever he said there when he got turned on. And they were asking for introductions or who are you? And he said, I know, I am Babu Frick. I was just like, I love that. I thought it was great. And then later on, when they're on the planet with the Death Star, and someone says Babu Frick. Oh, Babu Frick called us. Jana says something. Babu Frick called us. And C-3PO, oh, Babu Frick, one of my oldest friends. Just like, it was just, I loved it. I'm telling you, man. C-3PO stole the show. Oh, I mean, if you weren't laughing, man, you were taking this film way too seriously. Oh man, because that was just comedy. I don't know. I thought it was funny. Oh, I loved it. Do I think that Luke looked slightly hobo-y? Dude, he was on a planet. He was on Octo for how many years? Like, they didn't exactly have a salon around the corner with the caretakers, right? Like, he was gonna be a hobo. He's just living off the land there. So it didn't jump out at me. I thought that was amazing though that Leia had a lightsaber. I really did. I was really happy. I was genuinely happy. With Leia's passing even, right? It looked kind of weird the way the shadows were, and it must have been CGI, like where she kind of lays down And this is the part, of course, where Rey and Kylo were fighting, and Rey basically says, "No, I'm not giving in." Like, I'm not sure she knew that Ben could be redeemed at that point, but she was not going to give in. Her strength was in that power was so strong of a pull to the light. Um, and of course, ultimately leading to Kylo's effective redemption, and then that's when Leia let go. I thought that was beautifully done. The fact when that when when Leia disappears, I want to say it happened at the same time that Kylo disappeared, right? Ben disappeared. I thought it was because she was like holding on and holding on until holding on and holding out all hope for her son, and I just thought that was, I mean, it was a nice way of telling the story. Um, it was effective. I did not get emotional really at that part. When Ben faded, I was like, "Oh man, he used all his life force. He didn't. He must not. He must have really got knocked." Um, Leia, we knew was going to exit. Chewbacca's reaction. I loved Chewbacca's visceral reaction when he found out that Leia had passed. I really did. I was just like, "Oh man, you could just feel it." He reacted in such a way, with Han, of course, he was like angry, like, like just the raw, like sad, just but angry. But at this point, I'm not saying Chewbacca was despondent, but like, you know, he reacted in such a way that was just so visceral. Like all of his friends were they're leaving, right? They're gone, and Leia, I I feel that he just was kind of going through this mental state of like, God, I've lost Luke, I've lost Han, I've lost Leia, like I'm losing all my friends. Um, and just that reaction I thought was very well done, including, when he's just really, like sad, but then someone says, Chewbacca, we need your help. We got to get this going, and he just kind of like shrugs. He's like, you're right. That's what and he's probably thinking that's what they want, and he's right. That's exactly what they'd want. Um, yeah, movie hit the feels quite good with Han coming back. Jesus, I agree. I thought that was amazing. Like, Ben, where you kind of like wonder, okay, what's going on in his head, and is he making that transition after Rey heals him? And you can see him go through that, but like I was like, I hear Han's voice, I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm like, this is where it could have taken a turn. Like if Han showed up as a Force ghost, I probably would have been really like going, oh, okay, this is a bit of a stretch. But the fact that he came up as as a figment of his imagination, right? I thought that was a beautiful way of kind of playing out Kylo's thoughts, very tastefully done. um like he was standing there talking to him. He's like, you're talking, you're talking, he's basically saying he's talking to himself, but then he even speaks through the words, he said before, like, I know what I need to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. Where the first time around you did kind of wonder, but now he knows that he needs to destroy Palpatine. He knows it's effectively the right thing to do. And it could have been that pull from seeing Rey's light, and fighting for that the light side, and the pull from his mother, who you might remember when he was going to fire on the bridge, he paused. Like Kylo Ben still had a connection to his mother. It was a strong connection, a very strong, more so than his father. So Leia was still pulling for Ben, like big time, and I think Leia was as much to to credit for Ben's redemption as Rey. That's my feeling. Thought that was fantastically done. Rey is Sith blood. Hang on, let me stop. Let me stop you right there. Rey is not Sith blood any more than Luke is Sith blood. Oh, just saying. See, can't have it both ways. Just saying. It's all about balance. Light side, dark side. Oh, made you think there. Whoa, boom, what? Just because she's Palpatine doesn't mean she's going to be bad. Anakin Skywalker. That's Darth Vader. Yo, he was evil. Does that mean Luke Skywalker's evil? You got, man, it's just. Alright, you just. I believe that was Leia projecting Han to Ben. No, I don't think so. I think because I want to say expositorially, Ben said out loud, but you're just in my imagination. And he says, yeah, or you're just in my thoughts. No, that was not a projection. It was just Ben. It was a visualization of what Ben was thinking. um, remember when Leia was prepared to go to her bed to use what energy she had to try to left with Ben one last time? I think that's what she was aiming to do. Like I said, I think Leia was going to hold out hope until Ben, as she knew that Ben was good with the Force. Um, I loved. Okay, so I mean, so of course, at the end of the Last Jedi, no one's around, right? The galaxy is not united. Like no one's responding to the distress signals. And then, of course, we see that mostly throughout the Rise of Skywalker, which kind of made me wonder. But then, of course, at the end, they all show up. Well, here's my question. This was not filled in the movie. Not that I necessarily need an explanation, but how did they coalesce? How did this galactic, like, what made them all come together specifically to, not Malachor, not Mustafar, Exegol? What made them show up at Exegol? Who drove them there? How'd they do it? Was it Lando? Was it Zori Bliss? Was it a combination of the two? Like who drove that? Like, and I don't know if I have that I don't think was explained in the film. I don't know if I need an explanation because obviously they showed up, but like nothing like waiting to the last minute. But it's just they all show up literally at the same time, and I don't know. I know why. I just don't know how. That was a question mark that I had. But not to the point where I feel that it took away from the film. And maybe it was explained and I totally missed it. The guy's name was Ochi. Yes, that's the guy's name. Thank you. The other part, like the very end, of course, where Luke and Leia show up as Force ghosts when Rey's burying their sabers there on Tatooine, showing just everything's just dust, like there's nothing there. It was interesting, of course, to hear that woman, she say, "Oh, I haven't seen a lot of people around here." I'm like, yeah, well, this woman obviously would have known that someone was around and probably who was around. But it was interesting, she, who are you? Like Rey, Rey who? Some people say, well, that just doesn't sound natural. I'm like, well, maybe it's a bit on the nose, but it gave us a chance to hear her say it out loud. One, Rey Skywalker, she chose her family. She was closer to Skywalker. That's where she believes she needs to be. And that's where I think she identifies. And I think that's fine. That's her family, an adopted family, because she never really had a family except for that apart from that. And what that name meant to her and what she tried to live up to, her vision of Luke. And Leia to a large degree, being when she called Leia master earlier in the film, I'm like, whoa, I'm like, yeah, Leia, that was good. I loved hearing that. But some people said, well, it's really awkward. Like, why would you ask someone's last name? I'm like, well, think about it. This woman knew that this woman's older, right? This woman knew that someone wasn't around. The chance of this woman traveling to Tatooine to live, probably slim. Growing up there, probably high. So she probably knew whose homestead that was. Going potentially, and I'm not going to say all the way back to, but at least to knowing Luke was there. Certainly, she would be of that age. Because she looked a little older than Luke would have been, so she would have probably been Luke's contemporary in terms of an age range. So to hear Rey say, to ask Rey who, maybe she's just curious. Maybe she's like, why are you here at this place that someone hasn't been to in decades, right? This place, why? So I'm not saying there's a backstory to the woman who asked, but it wasn't as out of place to me as I think it seems to be to get Rey to say Skywalker. I thought it was well done, as well done as anything. It was a nice thing that was it. That was the last part of the last bit of the film. I thought that was fantastic. So yeah, I was happy. I was very happy. I'm just looking at the comments here. They all showed up at the same time because they all had to follow Lando since he was the only one who knew the course to take. Okay, that helps. That helps immensely because that makes sense, right? Lando can set out the call like, all right, this is Lando Calrissian, you know, because Lando's got his network naturally. You know, we know where Palpatine is because remember, thank you, that makes sense. Palpatine broadcast to the entire galaxy. That was the whole setup. The dead speak. Palpatine's broadcast. So Lando knew the chart. Lando broadcast to everybody and like, you know, put it out on the holonet. That makes sense. Okay. That makes sense. That gap, I figured had an explanation. That gap has now been sown. That makes sense. It doesn't take much for me. Like, it doesn't take, that's not a logical leap. Like to say, we know what Palpatine is. Follow me. We're going to Exegol. I'll lead the way. You know, follow my signal. You know, whatever. That's my best Lando. When I loved Lando, I liked Lando more in this film than I think I liked him in Return of the Jedi. I don't know why. This had a very Return of the Jedi vibe, and maybe because the gang's all together again briefly. I don't know why. It was just fun. Wicket at the end, that was an older Wicket, a very reminiscent Wicket looking like the Kenner action figure with the white face, older, right? White hair, it had to have been Wicket. That had to have been Wicket. I'm trying to think of any other jump out moments, which of course is fan service, and I'm okay with that. Hang on. Someone's comment got flagged here. Sakes Org 13 says, "Yeah, I helped. Yes, you did. Sometimes I need a little help." Yeah, even Adam Wallace says, "Yeah, thanks. That makes a lot of sense." So I just need that. Like, oh, okay, yeah. It wasn't a plot hole. It just I wasn't quite clear on it, but it after I sewed together, well, wait, Palpatine broadcasted, the whole galaxy knows they're in trouble, and now there's a chance to fight back. I wish that was a scene though. I wish that was a scene that Lando said, broadcasting across the entire holonet. This is Lando Calrissian. You know, we're heading to the Exegol. Follow the Millennium Falcon signal. That would have been. I think it wouldn't have been expository, but I think it would have helped me kind of. Maybe that was a deleted scene. I don't know. I don't think that would have taken away from the action. The reason they probably didn't do that, they couldn't do that. Think about it. If they did, they would have taken away Poe's moment of feeling like he was a failure, like all hope was lost. They couldn't have done it. I mean, see, that's what I'm saying. Like, these decisions are made with intention. Like but if you overthink it and you think too far ahead of it, it's like it'll bother you. It didn't bother me because I knew there's something anyway. But there's usually a reason for everything. Usually, do I think the Skywalker saga is over? Oh, since the Skywalker saga is over, maybe we'll get a movie of Boba Fett climbing out of the pit. He may not have been a Mandalorian, but he's definitely a badass. I think the whole Mandalorian thing is being satiated with the Mandalorian TV series. I have every reason to believe the Mandalorian TV series will run for like 8 years. Like, Disney would be nuts to drop that. Oh, nuts to drop that. It's a hit. Oh man, the more people have talked about the Mandalorian than I ever could have hoped for. But I long said, even before the Mandalorian launched, that the future of Star Wars media was likely in something like The Mandalorian, a live-action TV series. I think we're going to see a lot more Star Wars coming down that route, and that type of media availability versus the classic just in the films. I think we are still going to see films, but they'll be different. And I'm okay. If all we get is live-action Star Wars till the end of time and not another Star Wars films produced, as long as we're getting Star Wars media, visual content, I'll be okay. I'll be good. I still want films. Don't get me wrong, Disney. Keep making films. Talk about the middle with Chewie. I did. Also, if they did that, maybe the Final Order, was it Last Order? I think it was Final Order, would be tipped off to their plan, so maybe they avoided it. Oh, see? That's what I'm saying. There's two logical reasons why that. Two reasons it didn't happen. One, the element of surprise in the film. Two, tipping off Palpatine. Again, Sace Org 13 comes to the rescue. Did I like the connection to the child in The Rise of Skywalker? There was a connection to the child? Okay, now I'm curious. Explain. How did I miss? The only connection to the child that I would have seen is the fact that you could force heal someone. That's something that I don't think we've seen in film, but the child just did that, tried to do it, or he did that in what was it, the second episode when when he ran into the Mudhorn, second, third episode, whatever that was. Yeah, so we knew the child could do that, and now Rey could do it. Of course, she did it on that snake, and then did it again with Kylo. Yeah, it was the same type of wound we saw. Yeah, so if that's the connection, maybe that was a connection. I don't know if I'd say it was a connection to Yoda, but it was not like a surprise. Oh, that's a Force power now. Like, I like that. I like the fact that when we were watching Star Wars, someone does something we didn't see before. I'm not like the kind of guy that goes, "What? That's impossible. That's not how the Force works." Like, it's the Force. It's fantasy. You don't know how it all works. So when creatures and people do things that you can't necessarily explain, it just doesn't bother me. Like, how did Rey channel all the Jedi? How did Palpatine control the Sith? How did he survive? It just doesn't bother me. Like, I think we're going to see a comic arc about Palpatine and how he survived the Death Star. All things are possible. It's Star Wars. It's fantasy. Episode 7, have I seen it for The Mandalorian? Yes, Jesus. I saw it. The day that they release a Mandalorian episode, I watch it. Like, it's a given. They released the most recent episode where he did the healing 3 days early for a reason. No, he also healed. No, he didn't. He was going to heal the Mandalorian. Or did he? Did he heal the Mandalorian after the Mudhorn? Now I'm wondering. He must not have. He wanted to, and the Mandalorian kept getting upset and putting him back in the pram. Okay, yeah, it must have just been with Grief Karga. Yeah, okay. Must have just been with Grief Karga. Okay. That wouldn't surprise me. No, Lando did not follow Palpatine's signal. Lando followed Rey's path to Exegol because Rey knew the way because she had the Sith Finder or the Sith Seeker. I can't remember what it's called, from Kylo's destroyed ship that she destroyed, but that wasn't destroyed. And Luke said, yeah, Kylo destroyed the one, but he had the other one that you had in his ship. Don't give up. You're not out of the race. I loved it. I loved the pep talk. Palpatine looked awesome. Visuals were amazing. I concur. Oh, he looked so creepy. So nefarious. That was the scariest. I was more frightened of Palpatine in this, in episode 9 than I was in 3 and 6. Palpatine had never been scarier. Never before. Never more scary than that. Oh my God. So evil. Oh man. Just think about it. It had to be that way, man. It had to be that way. You loved to have the Death Star open for Rey. Assume it knew she was a Palpatine, but maybe overthinking it. It's possible. We don't know. We can't explain it. Maybe it sensed midi-chlorians. Maybe it sensed the Force count. I love the fact that we went back to the throne room. I didn't see some of these things I know bother some people, but I loved it. Every bit of it. Nothing seemed out of place. Nothing. I'm sitting here going, I demand an explanation. Oh, it was horrible. They totally did this. They totally did that. I liked it differently. And that's the thing. It's like having a child. I like this movie differently. I like this differently. I refuse to rank. I refuse to grade. I loved it. I'm fine with saying that. I liked The Last Jedi, and I enjoyed every Star Wars film. I liked The Last Jedi. I don't think there's any Star Wars anything that I've never not liked. Hey, big remember, I also watch the holiday special every year. So take it with a grain of salt. Not like I had a lot to begin with tonight. But I am gonna wrap it up. Just looking at a couple last comments here. You love when Wedge Antilles showed up. Yeah, I know. I did too. I'm like, Wedge! Ah! I'm like, these are things that I think only fans would get, right? But those moments I just loved. I loved them. I mean, I honestly, I think those moments helped me love the film more. Or help bring me to my enjoyment to the film. I think if anything, a lot of people are disappointed. Most people seem to be disappointed in Rey being a Palpatine because they didn't want her to be a Palpatine, or they wanted her to be a normal person. And I guess I was just along for the ride. And based on everything I know about the Force and the setup, it added up to me. So made sense to me. Do I have more questions? Yes, absolutely. But not any more questions than I might have had for any other Star Wars film. You wish Rian Johnson was the director of all 3 movies. So I do wish Disney had a better plan for the 3, because I think they would have been more cohesive. Not that I think that the prequels seemed cohesive, mind you. I don't know. I thought it worked. For me, it worked. So my reaction is positive. I guess this turned into my review. I'll do my, I guess, official review when Jedi sees it. And we'll talk about it live with everybody. We'll do our review with Jedi, a 5-year-old, who I'm gonna have to like go. You don't want to watch like the first couple minutes here. It's pretty evil, scary. Man, Palpatine was so scary. Oh, it's frightening, even to the point where I'm just like, I don't want to look. I love that. It was great. It was everything it needed to be. Oh man. Okay, you got. I mean, people can detract all they want. I'm not a Jar Jar Binks hater, so that if that didn't lose me, I wasn't an Ewoks hater. I guess I'm a horrible fan, but I like everything. So thank you everybody for tuning in. I do appreciate it. Thank you for the questions. Thanks again for the support this week. It's been ups and downs. And I'm specifically talking about the passing of Wicket. As I referenced at the beginning of the video, but didn't want to go into it too deeply. Apart from this, I'll leave you with this. My mom, Wicket, by the way, named after the Ewok, because Wicket as a pup just reminded me of Wicket, very much so. My mom said she wished she would have talked to me before we brought him into the vet to help him pass, and I just don't want to use the word put him down. That just sounds so unemotional, and it was anything but unemotional. But mom said, well, I would have told Wicket to look for the Rainbow Bridge when he gets to the other side, and that would help him cross over to whatever. And I'm like, what would it matter? Wicket wouldn't have listened to you. It's true. If Wicket had middle fingers, he'd have flipped me off years ago. I'm not talking about Wicket the Ewok. I'm talking about Wicket, our dog, who passed away earlier this week, of 15 years. Survived by his sister Pixie. Oh, Pixie, come here, boo. Who, have you heard her? Have you heard her in this video? Have you heard her? No, you haven't. Pixie, say hi to everybody. Hello. She's been laying quietly down there the whole time in a Darth Vader bed. So sorry, I did not mean to interrupt. But she's doing very, very well. Very, very well. Go ahead, baby. I love you. I appreciate you. And at this point, I'm going to leave you to your own devices, and may the Force be with you. Always. How do I end this thing?